What is up, people? Welcome back to our top 20 of 2023. We are counting down on this episode from 10 to 6. So, kicking things off, number 10, Duncan. My number 10 is. Do you want me to go first again, by the way? Just
Yeah,
again.
at this point we've
committed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll set a precedent, so we can't really. That great idea that we had off here has been fucked, David. So
Fair enough. Number 10. This one, it's a weird one. It hasn't really had a lot of press, which is strange considering the band members of this band are also in another band, much more established band,
yeah,
yet haven't seen a huge amount of reviews and press about it. My number 10 is an album called You by blackened metal trio Johnny the Boy.
Yeah.
Released on June 9th via Season of Mist Records. So if you've never heard Johnny the Boy before, they are primarily a kind of blackish black metal band, but they infuse kind of like elements of like crust punk and hardcore, doom and sludge as well, but not done in a kind of predictable, formulaic type way. This is an album that is incredibly written. Like the songwriting in this album is fantastic. Not surprising, with the other members, the members that are involved in this are also in another band called Cripple Black Phoenix. So if you've heard that band, then you'll know that nothing is done in a really kind of predictable way. The Cripple Black Phoenix albums often take you on a type of weird and wonderful journey, and this album also does that, but not in a way that kind of mirrors or repeats what Cripple Black Phoenix are doing. This is far more bleak, far more ferocious, taking that kind of black metal heart and pairing it with a tempo that's maybe more found on the kind of sludge and doom side of things. They are fairly visceral tracks up front, great kind of mixture of like song lengths and giving you various kind of incarnations of their sound, but similar to Cripple Black Phoenix, they add in some really clever nuances in the dynamics of the album, and also shift the emotional mood of the album throughout, which I absolutely loved. There's a huge amount of depth to this, a lot of emotion to the album that just kind of hooks you in, and then once you're in there, it's hard really just to not love this album once that happens. It's one of those albums that when I hit play, I'm in for the whole album because I know exactly what's coming, and it's just so incredibly written, perfectly produced by two kind of masters of their craft, and Kurt Ballou and Magnus Lindberg of Cult of Luna. Fantastic album. I had to have it in my top 10. It is just up there with the best. So my number 10 is Johnny the Boy and You. Ross, number 10. What you got?
My number 10 is an album that I actively avoided for months and months and months. I've seen lots of split opinions on it. People that I trust told me it was good. People I love told me it was terrible.
Oh.
It is by a festival headlining band, but I can't remember the last time that a band of this size took a swing this big. So my number 10 is Life is But a Dream by Avenged Sevenfold. This is an album that has rubbed people the wrong way. It has, however, rubbed me the right way. I love Avenged Sevenfold. I know it's not cool, and they're not, the coolest band around, but I was the perfect
I saw them
age for
live
this
on the
band.
City Evil tour. I was there.
I was the perfect age for this band coming out.
Yeah, I have a soft spot for this band, which I know sometimes gets me accused of being a hack.
Exactly.
But that's fine.
I really liked the last album. Not a lot of people did. It's really they've really doubled down on the prog stuff last time around, and then in the kind of build up to this one, they said they were leaving all that sort of stuff behind, and they were trying something new. This doesn't sound like anything they've done before. It is a bit all over the place. There is a lot of really, really strange choices on this album, but I like them. I like most of them. There's the second song, Mattel, has this sort of chorus that's purposely off key, but as someone who listens to a lot of jazz music, I like that. I like that it really sounds grating towards the rest of the music. We Love You was the first song that I heard, which when my friend described it to me, it's like Pink Floyd, but if they were actually good. and I put it on, and it's such a unconventional chorus. It's just them describing the future with this kind of weird robot voice, like build higher, build taller. But I just keep going back to it. I think it's great. There's a trio of songs at the end, God. The O part of that song is just Avenged Sevenfold's version of Get Lucky by Daft Punk. It's like it is a straight up futuristic funk song, and I think it's great. I absolutely love it. I love the balls of doing this. This is a band that last time I seen them sold out the Hydro with Disturbed supporting them. I've seen them headline Download multiple times. I just don't think bands of this size have the balls to take a risk in the way that this band did with this album. And the world would be a better place if bands just thought fuck it and just took these big swings. And yeah, I think the world was a better place with a band like this size doing something this out there. This doesn't sound like anything I've ever heard before. I don't think they could make another album like this. I don't think this will be such a standalone moment in this band's career. I don't even know what they do next now, but I'm really happy that this is like such a perfect screenshot of what these five guys are feeling at that moment, and they were feeling fucking everything by the sounds of it. But I really like that. This is not an album I ever thought this band could make, and I don't think it's an album they could make again. And for that, I really, really enjoy it. Life is but a dream.
Yeah, both me and Dave didn't, which is weird with Avenged Sevenfold. Neither one of us disliked the album. I think there was elements that I thought were really, really, really good.
I actually thought you would both hate it, to be honest.
No,
I just had this feeling you would both not like it.
I think on one of the podcasts we both came in with it. Well, we'll talk about the most hated album that's come out this year, and neither one of us shat on it. It was more a kind of, this is weird. Like,
I don't people who love this band but hate this album.
Yeah,
like it's really out there for a band of that size, but I'm happy it exists.
Awesome. Duncan, what are you kicking off number 10?
Oh, this album was my most listened to album this year, which is why it made my 10 with the staggering, according to it, and I think it may have added the plays since my, your replay for what you did this year on Apple Music. Other outlets are available. 231 album listens.
Oh
my God.
Quite a few. With the grand total of 820 minutes full listens of the album all in. I don't know if these guys were ever fully on my radar as much as they were the first time I heard opening track Sunshine. And it got me in. In fact, I think I remember that day was the same day. Oh, you have to check other videos now to get this reference. That Cryptopsy released that track. And so I was just I occasionally get moments where I'm buzzing about music to the point that the big headphones are on, and I'm upstairs and my family are talking to me, and I'm just ignoring them because these ones have noise cancellation. And everything's, I'm just like engrossed in it. And I was listening to everything that had come out that Friday, and Teenage Wrist's brand new album, Still Love, which was available on Epitaph Records, dropped. And by the time Sunshine was finished, I was fucking buzzing. I was like, what? Like, I'd heard the name. I don't think I think I always got them muddled up with Teenage Bottle Rocket, and the two bands don't sound remotely alike. And I was like, oh, this is fucking grungy, and it's 90s, and it just transported me back to being maybe a shade younger than what Ross is right now, and just remembering what it was like to like go out and party with your friends, and there would be fucking like grunge and rock and stuff like that, and like loving that time, and that it filled me with joy. And then the album continued to fill me with joy right to the very end. It's a weird one because it's an album that heavily relies on guest appearances and collaborations with a lot of other musicians, which now having seen them live, the band don't necessarily want to do live. So the tracks that have prominent parts where there are vocal lines done by, on Still Love, the title track, where you have like female vocals, and they just didn't play that song live because they don't have a female vocalist. When they played the second track on the album, which has a rap section, and it like kind of spoken word fast and rap bit, they just played it instrumental. They don't try and cover it up, which is weird to see because a lot of bands would try and cover up. They just get on with it. Actually, if anything, they played a lot more older material, which I know was something we both came out with. They played a lot more older material on their tour in Scotland than either one of us was really expecting, considering they played for about an hour and 20 minutes.
Wow.
They played it was a huge set. They sounded fucking great. They played maybe 5 songs from the new album, and all the other stuff was old stuff, but it was the first time they'd been over here. So I think they were trying to cover everything.
I really loved their last album, and they never played here.
That's
when
they played.
Black Hole came out. Yeah, they weren't here for that.
Literally played most of that album.
Yeah,
so had you been there, you would have heard most of that album. And it was excellent live. Vocally, he's great on album. He's fucking great live. I remarked about they're a 2-piece ostensibly, and it works. It really, really works. The drummer does backing vocals. His backing vocals are fucking great. Pounds the shit out of those drums. Like every time he was hitting the drums, I was fucking wincing. You bastard. And that just like really, really, really like powerful playing. It's an album that I keep coming back to because it makes me happy. There aren't as many albums I've heard this year that are just unabashed joy and make me opine for a time that is no longer with us, but it's scarily. The grunge influence is rife this year and last year and will continue on. There's a lot of that kind of late 90s, not like the Nirvana grunge. I'm talking about the late 90s where like kind of later, I was going to say later day, it's not later day Pearl Jam because they're still on the go, but kind of late 90s era, Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, bands like Garbage, like they're huge Garbage influences throughout a lot of stuff I've heard this year as well. Teenage Wrist capture a lot of that, but they give you a lot of dexterity on the album, so you get a lot of different touch points. We never reviewed this for the site. We did speak about it, and we both talked about how fucking infectious it was, and I didn't realize when we were talking about it then I would end up listening to the album 231 times. I'm overjoyed we got to see them live. I want to see them in a bigger venue. I want to see them again on this tour. They're about to go and open for Code Orange, which feels bizarre, but they're about to do that in America. And it's another one that kind of came out and no one... Epitaph used to have... I don't know what's going on there. Epitaph used to be a label that genuinely, when they released something, like your Kerrangs, your Metal Hammers, like they were all scrambling to cover them. Then I've got 2 albums out on Epitaph, Drain and like a Teenage Wrist, a label that's not been on an end of year list for me maybe in like 20 years. And Drain's getting a lot of press. Drain's getting a big push just now, and rightly so. I still don't see enough people speaking about Teenage Wrist, and I don't know why that is. This to me is it's chicken soup for the soul from start to finish, and there's absolutely no way I could have a top 20 list. There's no way I could have a top 10 list, and an album which has almost more than double the plays than any other album that I've listened to this year, sitting at my number 10. Should really be higher for going on favourites, but you will see when we move on to the other albums, there are bands that just have a craft which is in a different level than this. But Teenage Wrist, still love, out on Epitaph. It was my number 10.
Nice. Number 9 next. So, this one probably was higher earlier in the year. Maybe slipped a couple of places. But when I came back to it, I was reminded why it needed to be in my top 10. Probably one of the best UK metal bands right now. My number 9 is Blossom by UK tech metal band People Slicer, released on June 2nd via Prosthetic Records. We've reviewed this one at length as well. I liked their debut, Mirrors. I thought was a really good album. A lot of promise on a debut, some really clever ideas. It wasn't perfect for me. I felt like not every track kind of hit the mark in the production. Although it fitted that kind of chaotic style, it wasn't my kind of favourite production that I'd heard. Blossom, however, it kind of sounds like a new band, to be honest. The songwriting was far more focused on this one, much more varied stylistically, and much more memorable, like in the riffs and the hooks and vocally as well. I think Kate has showed this massive side to her voice, such an array of styles and tones and moments of like vulnerability on the album, which I really think took this album to the next level. Just so much more to offer than Mirrors in every way. Production is also incredible, which was kind of the last piece of the puzzle for me, but not a surprise, to be honest. It's done by Lewis John, so like everything he touches is pretty much gold, to be honest. Yeah, an incredible release right across the board, but I think the emotional side of the album is where it kind of shines for me. It kind of drew me in and made me want to come back for those repeat listens. This is a band only on their second album, which is kind of nuts, to be honest, because if this is what they're doing at this stage, then who knows, what heights they're going to hit next on the next release. So yeah, that's my number 9. It is People Slicer and Blossom. Ross, where are you going for number 9?
My number 9 is an album that you've actually already spoke about and just missed out on Duncan's list as well. It is Zulu and A New Tomorrow. We already spoke about this album when I was on the show at the start of the year, and honestly, this album is just so good. Every time I go back to it, I'm picking like new favourite songs, new favourite moments. It's just I've not heard something that sounds like this before.
Yeah.
I was reading comments about it, and it was now we finally have an album the way white people feel about Turnstile. And I was like, I get it. It's like, this is a band that is just so heart on sleeve. They say exactly what they mean. And we were talking about it earlier, is that influence of so many different scenes and different genres. There's the power violence stuff, but then there's hip hop or there's reggae. But these things feel so live and so organic that you feel like you're in the room. And it almost feels like they're putting a mic into the crowd and there's guest features, like it has that sort of vibrant energy to it. I first heard about them as a live band, like people who went to Outbreak. This was the band I've seen everyone talk about. So this is the band I'm so excited to see in the summer. And I think we spoke about it when we reviewed the album at the start of the year. It's like that it does feel like there's like kind of a hardcore song, maybe like a reggae song, hardcore song, and then maybe a hip hop song. And when they start melding these things together in songs, I don't know what the ceiling could be for a band like that. I've not really seen something like this before. But this is an album that gives me a taste of something. But a part of me is I think I love this album so much because I'm so excited for what could be next.
Yeah.
Like, it's got me so excited for where they're going to go. But that's not to take away from the quality of this album itself. We were saying earlier, it's only 25 minutes long, if that.
Yeah.
It's over in a flash. Like, it's one of those albums, as soon as it finishes, you want to hit play again. There's like spoken word sections that don't kill the pace. Like it's almost like a breather, because you know round that corner you're about to get hit with just something so vile and disgusting.
Yeah.
And yeah, this album is, every time I've listened to it, it's just kind of creeped higher and higher up my list. Yeah, it's such a great record. That's Zulu with A New Tomorrow.
Awesome. Duncan, number 9.
Number 9 for me. Dave, I don't like prog.
Oh. Bold statement.
There. I said it. I don't like prog.
Right.
My list this year would disagree with that.
Okay.
3 prog albums make my top 20. One of them was a kind of poppy prog album, though. It's Voyager. Yeah, proggy, but it leans heavy on the poppy, so, back the fuck off, Dave. Number 9 is just out and out prog. It couldn't be any more prog. Even more so that it's on a prog label. It's on Inside Out music. You've already talked about it. It just missed out on your 10. Could not miss out for me. When I listened to and we reviewed this album, I unabashedly said in my review, this is the best album I've heard this year. And it clung on to my top 10 to the end, which is good play to Haken, because this year has been a tour de force of fucking music. Honestly, it got to the point where things were getting a bit shaky, but clinging on at number 9, Haken and Fauna on Inside Out music. Yeah, it's long, but you know what? I would not change a second of anything on here. Ironically, the shortest song on this one might be one of the catchiest songs of the year, which is Love Bites. I sing this I'm all about my house going, oh, just like all the time. I fucking can't help it. Nightingale was the first track that was released. I sent Dave a message saying, have you heard the new Haken song? I swear to God, Mark King is doing vocals here. This is level 42. We need to, like, me and Dave, clearly from the look of us, huge level 42 fans, which I'm not even saying jokingly, we are huge level 42 fans. So that had me already interested because it sounded, the production alone sounded something a little bit different from Virus, which was an album which I wanted to love more but couldn't. This album is still spinning for me, still playing it all the time. I think across the board it shows a maturity in the band's sound, a confidence in their songwriting. This is one of a handful of albums this year where the press statement said they relocated to a cabin in the woods, which as a horror fan usually means death to everyone at the hands of some mass killer, but in the case of a lot of these bands, churned out incredible music. This also was one of these ones where they said this was the first album they all wrote together as a band, which on their 7th album kind of blows my mind. But like, they should never change the formula here. This is, it's like Haken 2.0. I think this is the band finally finding their original, confident, and most progressive sound. It's a fucking incredible album, and slightly to argue with a statement mentioned earlier on by young Ross, I think this is the best produced album of the year. I think this is about as clean an album as you're going to fucking hear. Like, everything, since, like, all the elements across the board. There's another prog album that nips at its toes, and we'll speak about it later on. I think this one just sounds a little bit more refined than that. And granted, this band has been on the go for a lot longer, so they have that excuse, right? Yeah, to me, number 9, Taken Fauna, Inside Out Music. If you have not listened to it yet, clear an hour and just get ready to smile.
Nice. Number 8, gentlemen. So, you mentioned earlier, I don't tend to love the black metal genre.
He hates black metal, ladies and gents. Fucking hates it. See, like unless it's the black metal curveball, Church on Fire, he's gotta go. Yeah, it's a callback to a video going.
I tend to
find it somewhere.
Tend to like black metal when it's mixed with other things. A bit of death metal, a bit of post metal. A wee bit of atmospheric stuff. And those are the albums that kind of stand out to me. The kind of out and out black metal albums I tend to not connect with. But when something comes along with a bit of an atmosphere or an emotional streak, I'm all about that. And my number 8 is all of that. It's Managed Decline by UK post-black metal band Underdark, released November 24th via Church Road Records.
Dave loves this album so much he fired a member of staff.
That is true. True story. Church Road Records, like, they had an incredible year in 2023. For a label that hasn't been on the go all that long, the quality of albums coming out of that label is just unbelievable. And signing Underdark was a real kind of stroke of genius, in my opinion, because this album is just outstanding. I think I liked their last release, even though the previous reviewer did not.
Did you know what genre it was in, Dave? Because
I did. I could tell pretty much straight away, to be honest. But this one's a far more refined record. You can hear there's been a change in the level of detail that's gone into this album, even in the balance of the production as well, but not in a way that it loses that intensity they had on that first release. Everything on this just seems bigger on Managed Decline, and even more epic when it comes to the way the songs are written, the song structures, the lead work, and those huge like black gaze type chords they've added in. But I also love that they didn't ditch that classic harsh black metal character either. It really gives this album a streak of menace at times. I love that, but as bleak and as dark as it can be, they use the uplifting side of their sound in a really smart way, just to give you these little moments of brightness, in the chords and in the lead work, and it just works fantastically well. The album had so many standout moments that there was something on every track that kind of caught my attention and held it. And I couldn't not have it in my 10. I've listened to it a ton since it came out, but I think had this came out earlier in the year and I'd had even more time with it, I think it would have ended up higher up my list, to be honest. So that's my number 8. It is Underdark and Managed to Climb. Ross, number 8, what you got?
My number 8 is an album we spoke about earlier this year. It's a band that I love this band. I just wish we had more music from them. My number 8 is Plague Boys by Grave Pleasures.
Oh, yeah.
This album is just fun. It's sexy. It's, again, horny. I keep coming back to this word horny today.
You are so horny.
Like, have you masturbated today?
I'm horned up.
You
boys.
want, like, we can stop this recording for what, 2 minutes, 3 minutes? If you need
I'll turn around.
you need to get
You tell me that Paramore story, and then. But honestly, this album is just so. I've waited years for this follow up, and I'm so happy that they took their time to craft an album like this. I said it last time. I think "Disintegration Girl" is one of the choruses of the year. I just walk about my house singing it, and if it wasn't probably for the album that came out this year that just missed out in my top 20, I would say this is the best Depeche Mode album in like 20 years. Like, it's just got that really kind of goth sleaze to it that just goes all over it. Like, Heart is Like a Slaughterhouse is just so unapologetically goth. I think it's so good, and I've not seen that much kind of noise for it. When I was like when I was putting my notes together for today, there's only one song on this album that has over 100,000 listens. Like, it's mad when you're writing choruses that are this level. And I think for Grave Pleasures, the thing is, people that are in are all in. Like, I'm all in on this band. They don't seem to have much in the way of casual fans. It kind of reminds me of Idle Hands. It's another band that's kind of in that sort of similar sphere, that kind of goth sphere. But Society of Spectres is probably, if not my favourite song of this year. Like, that was the first single that came out around this time last year, and I'm always going back to it. Every time it comes on my playlist, I never skip it. I'm always happy when it comes on. These choruses are absolutely huge. A title track that just wants to fight you. If it wasn't for another album that is coming up, I would have called this Lost Boys the album. But more on that to come later. But yeah, this album, if you've not checked out Grave Pleasures, please do, because they deserve everything and more. I know people felt a real attachment to Beast Milk, which I never quite had.
Oh, I love Beast Milk as well.
I have that love. The way people talk about Beast Milk is how I talk about Grave Pleasures. I think this band are amazing, and yeah, this album is everything I waited years for, and I just hope we don't have to do that wait again for the next one.
You know what's interesting? You were talking about how people go hardcore in on the band. I spent close to £100 on that Climax special release album, which came with a tote bag, which contained a full fucking authentic gas mask. And various other paraphernalia for the end of the world.
If it just wasn't in so many good bands, we'd probably get more stuff from Grave Pleasures.
Well, yeah, we're gonna get to that in a wee second. We're gonna get to that wee second with my number 8. Like we've spoken to him before, interviewed him. Honestly, genuinely one of the nicest people. We had beers with him. One of the nicest people you ever meet. So super hella nice, good, but a very talented guy, Dave. I think you have a question to ask me, so ask me it now.
Duncan,
Talk about it again.
What did you pick for number 8?
Kavost is a busy guy, Dave. He's a busy guy. Not only is he in a seminal, and I would say very influential band. I don't think without Beast Milk you have that goth influx of kind of 80s new wave bands that you're getting right now. And I think the problem is, like, Grave Pleasures are now, I still think they do enough to differentiate them from the main pack. But I think the problem is there's so much attention being drawn away from what they actually do really well. Kind of like Will Haven. Gonna touch on that later. He's in another band, though. A band that I want to love a lot more than I do. They had an album that fucking floored me, and I was like, this guy is invincible. And then he released 2 albums that I was like, maybe he's not. I couldn't get into them. Like, the first time you ever hear a track like Translucent Eyeball, you're just like, what the fuck is this pagan hippie metal folksy bullshit? It's fucking amazing. Give me more of it. Force feed it into me. And then it went all a bit strange from that point onwards. And then his other band, this band that I mentioned, Hex Vessel, decided that they were going to release an album called Polar Veil. And I'll be honest with you, Dave, I was like, but I have my Grave Pleasures album this year. Why do I need the Hex Vessel album this year? Or give it a year between the two. So I have one year, one the other year. And he's like, no, that's not how I work, Duncan. You sit down and shut up, you ignorant slut. And he spat in my face. And I wiped it away. And I was like, I'm sorry, sir. Polar Veil is the black metal album that I mentioned before, which isn't really a black metal album, but by God is, if an album could encapsulate the ethos, the authenticity of black metal, I don't think any band has released an album that captures it without releasing a black metal album.
Yep.
Polar Veil was released on Svart Records. We mentioned them before. Incredible record label. Here they are again. I said they usually have 1 or 2 albums in my top 20, and guess what? They had 2. So did not lie to you when I said that statement earlier on, and I hadn't counted before I said it. This kind of floored me. I like, we'd heard 2 long tracks already from it as kind of pre-release singles, and I was like, this does not sound like the Hex Vessel. I know it's kind of weird, kind of different, kind of lo-fi production. I'm not so sure about that. We'll see how this goes. And I remember listening to the album and getting to the end of it. The first listen, I was like, no. I was more confused than most people were listening to that Avenged Sevenfold album. I got to the end of it and I was genuinely was like, we'll do it again. And again and again, and again and again and again. And I've listened to this an unhealthy amount. I tend to listen to it, maybe it's actually worked twofold for me. I listened to it a lot in the summer when the sun was setting, like about like 1-2 in the morning, when it's just like it's dusky and it's easy. And I actually sat at the back and headphones on and just let it wash over me. Actually, once again, plays really well in the weather that we're in just now, which is cold. The thing about it is, I think it is it feels like I'm almost kind of throwing an insult at them. It is a deceptively smart album. Like, the songwriting on it is very, 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 very good and very clever. But it's subtle changes in what they do. It never really goes for any massive standout crescendo moment. It works really well in subtlety and kind of almost a kind of moodiness, a gloominess that kind of surrounds it. That's not to say that you don't get the savage black metal riffing. You do. You get the blast beats. You get all the stuff that comes with that. You get the kind of lo-fi production, although it's better than lo-fi production, so you can hear the instruments, which is always a plus. Vocally, it's fucking awesome. It's a complete, you let someone listen to Grave Pleasures and then you let them listen to Hex Vessel and tell them, as the same guy, there's maybe a little bit of connective tissue, but not enough where he goes out his way on Hex Vessel not to lead with the melody, but it's sung. It shouldn't work. It's hypnotically great, and I could not for the life of me sit down and tell you the one element on this album that makes it number 8 on my list. All I know is I can't stop listening to it, and if that's not the hallmark of a great album and great music, he wrote a lot of this himself. That's not the hallmark of a great musician, being able to craft something in a genre that you don't usually listen to, but by the end of it, you're kind of in. And it pisses people off when I tell them that my favourite black metal album this year is by Hex Vessel, and it's called Polar Veil. It's out on Svart Records. It's number 8 on my list. Once again, it's a fucking home run. Kavos can do no wrong. In Kavos we trust.
Nice. Moving on to number 7. Number 7 was pretty much constantly in my top 10 in 2023. It never left, not for a second. Because no matter what type of mood I was in, I could stick this on. The band comes from Denmark. They share members with a couple of other bands we've spoken about in the past. One of them has been mentioned in this top 20 already. My number 7 is Delude by blackened hardcore band Telos.
Where's my doom and gloom? There we go.
Released March 18th. I just love how bleak this is. It is just utterly savage and completely soaked in misery. But out with that kind of blackened hardcore sound, it's got elements of something that's quite disjointed as well. Almost kind of leans into a kind of more mathcore-ish kind of style at times. Given the album these really clever rhythmical switch-ups. But they also know when just to kind of throw down and just kind of smash you with these huge sludgy grooves. The balance is fantastic, and it just kept me hooked into the album the whole time. Sometimes when something is so heavy and relentless, it almost becomes like white noise at a certain point. But Telos managed to keep you engaged in the album by switching up that heaviness for something more disjointed or something more kind of melodically blackened as well. Even the way they intertwine that kind of heavy, kind of discordant sound with this kind of bleak lead work as well. It breaks the album up nicely. Also for such a heavy album, it has got like catchy moments in the vocals, but not in like a clean melodic way. More in a kind of rhythmical or like a lyrical choice that Victor's taken. It's also perfectly produced by the band, Jakob Bredel and Brad Boatwright. So it is a sonic punch in the face. I don't think it'll be long before we hear something new from these guys. The album came out in March, and then they already put out a new single in August, I think it was. So you never know what's next around the corner from Telos. But that's my number 7. It's Telos and Delude. Ross, what you got at number 7?
You want spaghetti western. You want hardcore. You want Gabba hardstyle. You want hip hop. You want the only album so far in all 3 of our lists. It is World Domination by Blood Command. I loved Praise Armageddonism. I'm with everything Duncan said earlier in that Nikki is the piece that this band needed for me to really click. I think they would not be the same band without her going forward. She's just a Yorkshire Terrier that wants to bite your ankles at every possible moment. It's just... I can't stop recommending this album to people because no matter what kind of music you like, they've done it. Like, there's so many songs in this that are like 40 seconds long, and then they're already on to the next idea. You've just took in what they've done, and they've already fucking patched it to move on to something else. Like, it's just... I don't know if I like it as much as Praise Armageddonism. I actually can't tell. They're such different albums. But it's kind of similar to what I was saying with Zulu. And that's like, where the fuck did this band go now? Because they've shown me a bit of everything. They could really take this in any direction. Like their hip hop song's not fucking amazing. But is it lots and lots of fun? Does it have enough shotgun samples to wound a Victorian child? Absolutely, it does.
Yes, it does, Dave.
When we went to see them live, I remember the grin coming over Duncan's face when they played that hardstyle song for a costume change.
Yeah.
And they come back out and they're line dancing on stage. Yeah. Nicky's climbing on speakers, pulling Christmas baubles off the roof, rubbing them on her FUD, and then throwing them at people in the crowd. Who else is doing that? And this album sounds like the exact sort of woman that would think to do that. Like, there's so much attitude at every single second on this album. There's also so much grace. Like, that same vocalist 20 minutes later was crying on stage at how emotional she felt about a song they were about to play. This is a band that can give me everything that I want in a band. Give me slow. They can absolutely hit me with tons of pace, tons of riffs, memorable choruses as well. Like we kind of spoke about that opening run where that was also its own EP, because that is kind of a similar style, but there's black metal on it, there's hip hop on it, there's it literally will do whatever it wants to do, and it doesn't care if you want it or not. And if you don't like it, you only have to wait 40 seconds for the next thing to come in. This is an album that every time I've listened to it, I've loved it more, and I'm still picking up new things now that I didn't hear the first 20 times I listened to it. The three of us just love this band. I know we do, but yeah, World Domination by Blood Command is such a great album. I can't wait to see if they do something next. But based on what we've been saying today, it sounds like we might be getting it, and we might be getting it sooner than we think. I also know they listen to the podcast, so go on, lads.
Duncan, number 7.
Well, to piggyback on Ross's statement here, here's another album that's on all three of our lists. Arguably one of the most exciting UK bands on the go right now. This is a firecracker of an album that shows growth, improvement, maturity, and that there is no glass ceiling to what they can bring in as an influence and how they adapt it into their mix of chaotic noise rock and metal. Pupil Slicer released Blossom on Prosthetic Records. I've been talking about a whole lot. We reviewed it in depth. We both slapped it with big old maximum marks. We actually interviewed Kate just after she come off stage. A long form interview as well, so go and check that out. There's nothing really that needs to be said more than that. It's an incredible album. The UK metal scene is about as exciting as it's ever been, and bands like Pupil Slicer are basically paving the way now for a whole influx of other bands that can try and really push a more extreme side of metal to the mainstream, which they are definitely doing now. This album has made a lot of top 5s this year from big publications. You don't do that without actually having the chops to do it.
Nice. Okay. Number 6 to complete part 3 of our top 20. Yeah, I mentioned this before in one of the other parts, but 2023 had some kind of real standout moments when it came to prog bands, but I don't think there were any that quite immersed me in their album like this next one. My number 6 was The Approbation by Crust.
Oh,
Released June 16th on Inside Out Music. It should be called Crust.
oh,
It's fucking, so fucking good. This is a debut. Every time I say that,
yeah. It's not just a debut, Dave. It's a DIY debut.
Yeah, this is another like cabin in the woods job. Here we go. Yeah. Let's go and record an album. Went into a cabin in the woods and didn't even know what type of album they were going to record. And this is what came out.
Just grabbed a friend and shot some of the best music videos you will see this year.
Yeah,
just on a whip, no script, no idea what it'll look like. We'll just go and do it.
Yep.
Like we were speaking to them. We were reviewing the fucking album. I was like, the theme is like a man on his deathbed going to a cabin and kind of waiting to die, and his life was flashing before his eyes. And I basically said to them, and the review was like that really makes a lot of sense, because the album to me feels like you're going through different eras of music, and they're like, I didn't even pick up on that. And I'm like, fucking like Kurt Cobain myself, you know what I mean? It was like everywhere, my head was all over the wall and back. Kind of like just as if it's. I genuinely do not think, Dave, that they know how special they are.
No, I don't think they do. I think if you like just really well crafted, brilliantly produced prog, with a really great mix of like old and new sounds and incredible vocals and harmonies, then there'll be something here that you will enjoy. I guarantee it. However, as Duncan said, this album also has levels to it. It is a concept album about a man isolated in a cabin, and that concept follows and switches musically and tonally throughout the album, which is just absolutely genius. It's so well thought out. The level of detail that's in this album is quite astounding. It's an album that, even like listening to it now, I still like notice new things in it. Like I remember when we were reviewing it, I was listening to it constantly before I'd kind of made notes, and every time I heard it, I was like, where did that come from? I never even noticed that before. It's one of those albums where there's just so much going on, and I get so much satisfaction from it every time I hear it. This is absolutely packed with feeling. It's got heart, and more layers than a proggy onion. You know what I mean? It's just there's so much to it. And they're
How do you slice a proggy onion, Dave?
I don't know.
Difficultly.
Yeah.
Over 10 minutes.
They are already working on new material, which I don't even know how they better this album, but if there's someone that can do it, I think it'll be All Crust, to be honest. I'm about to begin my journey into vinyl, and
You're a bit to go. Oh, I can't wait for this slippery slope into becoming that guy. You know what I mean?
I know Duncan said he thought Haken was the best produced album. For me, it's this. I think this is fucking immaculate.
Right, listen, we're gonna have a vinyl off here. It's gonna cost you a lot of money, but we're gonna sit down with Haken's album, we're gonna sit down with Okra's album, and at the end of it, we'll see.
Right, okay, deal. My number 6, Crust and the Approbation. Ross, what you got at number 6?
So I said when I spoke about Health earlier that there was 2 albums that I felt like with more listens might have even creeped higher and higher.
Yeah.
I'd never heard of this woman before. I came across it on an Instagram reel and have not stopped going back to it since. It's Lefay. She is an Icelandic Asian jazz singer. And I have not clicked with an album like this. And like it's the first listen, I was like, well, this is in my top 10. And then it was number 9, and then it was number 8, and then it's crept up to number 6. I've always had a really big appreciation for jazz music, more than I've liked it. Whereas this is an album where every single time I listen to it, I've got a new favourite song. Like I was obsessed with Second Best, and then it was Promise, then it was From the Start, and I just keep going back to it. The musicianship is absolutely stunning. It sounds almost like a live album at points. It kind of just sounds like this woman singing in her kitchen at points. It's not like overly showy in that kind of weird dissonant jazz way. It's really kind of free flowing. It almost has a sort of winter Christmassy, I guess, sort of vibe. Like it has that sitting with a glass of red wine, eating chestnuts on an open fire type vibe. You know, how many Ferrero Rochers can one person eat in one sitting? This is the album 17, that you put on to do 17,
that. And then you 17, then you go into a sugar coma. Don't ask me how I know that.
17 is the max number. There's like songs of Philharmonic orchestras on it. Like there's a song that's about her being bullied for having curly hair. As someone that has curly hair, I was like, this is such a personal thing that I can't believe someone else has now wrote this beautiful song about. The interludes on it are mesmerizing and so pretty, and just the lyrics, like it's such a heartbreaking album to listen to. Like it feels like, you know, you're like a kid and you're hearing your mum crying. Like it feels like I'm not supposed to hear
we're
this.
Say shagging. I swear to God, I thought we were going to say shagging. I was like, don't fucking do this to me.
It's like
all happened at once.
Like I can't. The emotion that this conjures up is so heart on sleeve, but not in that sort of shirt tuggy way that I love when emo bands do it. It's such a raw album. This again, maybe up there with Olivia Rodrigo. This is probably the most different thing that the website covers, but I could see quite a lot of people maybe going for this. It's just it's raw in the way that a lot of the music that we cover is. There's a song on it called From the Start, which is blown up on kind of like Instagram and TikTok and stuff. It's the only upbeat song on this album. Like if you hear that song and you're like, oh, I'm going to listen to the album off the back of that, you're probably in for a shock, because everything else is quite minor key and quite really sad and emotional, whereas that song's got some scat singing in it and it's quite lovely, whereas the rest is like this is a drinking Malbec late at night album. That's what this is. And as someone who now only likes wine as of this year, this was the perfect year for me to discover this album.
It's like that third mention of wine on this show. I'm loving it.
As soon as I realised wine doesn't taste like vinegar, this was the album I was reaching for.
Like, yeah, you've been drinking the wrong wine, buddy.
You mean Aldi's own brand isn't where to start?
What is this vintage Lambrini? I don't think we'll be drinking that today.
Bewitched, but I think it's pronounced Lethe. Like I said, she's Icelandic, but I think it's Lethe.
Okay.
Yeah, this album is absolutely stunning. Such a beautiful record.
Nice. Duncan, number 6. What you got?
Oh, they hate us because they ain't us. We mentioned this loads. This year, we mentioned this band loads. In comparison for other bands, like their influences, their sounds, whether they know it or not, someone has been there, done that, bought the t-shirt. I did actually buy the t-shirt at the gig. We're going to get to that in a second. Will Haven returns with their 7th album, and very much like Dave said, you're kind of sitting there going like that. Will Haven's come back. I wonder what that's going to sound like. And then you get to the end that you're like, the best fucking thing ever. They just I don't know what it is. They just keep going and doing amazing shit. There's something about that area of the world where it's very difficult for me to mention Will Haven without mentioning the Deftones. My introduction to both bands was about the same time. They're from the same part of the world. They've collaborated on loads of shit. And what's interesting about them is they're bands that were pigeonholed into one sound and then very, very, very quickly were like, nah, and then went off and carved their own niche. Bands that found atmospherics and keyboards and sounds about the same time, and Will Haven have maybe utilised them not as commercially smart as Deftones, but I would say arguably with greater impact on the entire genre. There's a lot of bands that do the Deftones thing, right? With the vocals and the keys, and they try and do the shoegaze and the beat bop, they're doing all that shit over there, right? The whole deathcore genre with those atmospheric sounds, Will Haven. Will Haven a decade before when no one was fucking doing it. And then they released an album that is effortlessly crushing. Like, I would hold up some of the songs from that album against the heaviest shit I've heard this year. And I'd be like, oh, it's heavy as fuck. And then I saw it live after 40 hours of no sleep, get back into the country 5 hours before a gig from Japan. 2 flights, 19 hours on a plane, and then right into Glasgow to go and see Will Haven because I was not missing that gig. And I saw them play a set that made the hit. There was like, we all do those moments where you get a bow and you go, oh yeah, but like you physically feel your face turn at the side. It was a set of that. Like every time I thought I'd heard the lowest note on the guitar, they had another one. And it was like they headbanged harder than any band I've seen this year. Grady like outperformed any vocalist I saw this year. And they were humble all the way through it. So thankful that people were there. You know, couldn't believe that so many people had shown up. They'd been away for so long. They were so glad to be back over. And just a band that I don't think understand how, 1, important they are, 2, how amazing this album, and 3, why we can never lose Will Haven. Wrap them in bubble wrap. We need to, like you say, it's the quality control above all else, Dave, that makes them stand out for me. They're a band that don't release albums because they're contractually obligated to. They release an album because they want to. And as a result, what you get is a full vision. And we got stuff on this album that sounded like movie scores. It was like fucking mind-blowing shit. It's produced incredible. It is, in my opinion, the best album that Will Haven have done. Album number 7, 30 years into their career, as if it was fucking nothing. And yeah, they're going to continue, I think. Will Haven is to metal what John Carpenter is to movies. And that John Carpenter made a ton of movies that were commercial failures, that were critically panned, that now we look back and say The Thing is the greatest horror movie ever made. Didn't make fuck all. It was hated by everyone because it came out the same year that E.T. came out, and people were looking at aliens going, oh, they're cute and cuddly. Found herb. And then, like, John Carpenter's fucking chest busting open with teeth and tentacles and all the rest. This is not our movie. Nowadays, people look at that and say it's maybe one of the best horror movies ever made. Will Haven, 10 years from now, people will be coming back and saying, oh, this is where music changed again. Because you can chart from them about a 10-year movement from when an album from Willhaven comes out to how the music scene changes. And 7 is that album again. And they're going to continue doing it. I fucking love it. So Minus Head Records, number 6, Willhaven, number 7.
Such a band's band. Willhaven, aren't they?
Oh,
they're such a
they
band's
are. Like,
band.
you will literally, like we said before, like we were chatting to Arm for Apocalypse last year. We were talking about how amazing that fucking new album was. And we were asking them Dream Tours and all the rest. And like, they were like, oh yeah, like Willhaven. We're like, oh, Willhaven would be such a great thing. Opened for them last year. Played a date with them. And like me and Dave were like, I've never been so fucking jealous of a gig in my entire life. Seeing Arm for Apocalypse open for Willhaven, you would have no skeletal structure left. It would just be jelly. You'd be just a mass of jelly on the floor like a puddle of pish. Anyway, that's number that. I think this is the close of this segment.
It is.
Yes.
A nice short one, Dave.
Nice. Keeping it short. That is part 3 of our top 20, counting down from 10 down to 6. We'll be back on part 4, our final part, for 5 down to 1. We'll see you then.